Lesson 6, we're converting measures, which in past books would have meant we're doing unit multipliers. If you remember what those were like, this newer copyright of the book, they sort of do away with that. Here's some abbreviations of measures. They do away with the unit multiplier and they try to simplify it. They say simply, if you're going to convert measures, you've got a unit you're starting with. Let's say, 2 inches. A constant that describes the relationship between these units. Okay, so maybe it's... Inches wasn't a great example here. Let's use 2 feet, because we're using multiply right now. 2 feet, and the constant between these two, because we're going to go to inches, would be 12, and we multiply because we're going to a smaller unit in inches. 2 times 12 is 24. Okay, so we're always going to start with a unit, times it by the relationship here, and come out with the second unit. All right, and that constant, the table here on the page is a great shortcut. You could write down the ones that we use the most as we go along on your cheat sheet. When we're going to a bigger measure, like inches to feet, we're going to a description of a larger measure, then we divide by the constant because we're going to need a smaller number. Meaning if I've got 12 inches, how many feet is that? Well, since a foot describes a larger amount by itself, we use it for longer distances. We don't need as many to describe the same distance. 12 inches only takes 1 foot. So that's why we're dividing by that constant, because we're going to a larger measure in feet. Let's practice this twice. I kind of like the way that they describe it. Example 1, Reggie took 36 big steps to walk the length of the hallway. If each big step is about a yard, okay, so he takes 36 yards of a walk here. That's what they just told us by making that conversion. Then the hallway is about how many feet. Okay, so we're going from yards is our first measure. We're going to feet at the end. Is that a bigger or smaller measure? Feet. Feet are smaller than yards. So we're going down, which means we're going to multiply yards by the constant. What's the relationship of yards to feet? There are 3 feet in a yard. And he took 36 big steps, or 36 yards. So 36 times 3 is how many feet? They do the math for us. Answer is reasonable. It takes a lot more feet than yards when you measure. If I ask how many feet are in a yard, I will say 3. 3 feet to every 1 yard. You'll get smaller numbers when counting by yards. Let's do example 4, because we got 2 different groups of measures now. James weighed 8 pounds, 10 ounces. How many ounces is that? Well, let's forget about the 10 ounces, because that part's easy. That part we can already use. But what's 8 pounds in ounces? We're going from pounds to ounces. Which one's bigger, pounds or ounces? Interesting abbreviations, aren't they? Pounds are usually the bigger one. So are we going to multiply to get to ounces, or are we going to divide our number 8 to get to ounces? We're going to multiply because ounces are smaller, so it takes more of them to measure pounds. You just have to think that through. If I set something on a scale, it's 8 pounds, and then I switch the measure to ounces, the number is going to go up really fast because it takes a lot of ounces to measure a single pound. How many ounces in a pound? There are 16, according to our table, ounces to 1 pound. So multiply by the constant and get how many ounces. You can also show it as number of groups times, how much in each group. That's 128. But don't forget the second step I left off at the beginning. We got to add that on. So it's 138 ounces. Pause, reread, whatever you need to do to make sure that made sense. It was kind of a 2-part problem. Converting measures doesn't have to be complicated. We do need practice, though, so please do A B, and C.